So in a short while, Mr. Aniedi Udo-Obong will be coming online to give his talk. So, hello, Mr. Aniedi.
Hi, Faisal. Hi, everyone. How you doing?
We're doing well, sir. Doing well. Perhaps you would be able to give your talk now, and we would record it and share it.
Sure. Let me see if I can present my screen. Let me know if everyone can see my screen.
Let me see. Okay, let me add it to the stage.
All right. All good?
All good. Yes, we can see it.
All right. Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Aniedi Udo-Obong. Aniedi, as I'm known. I work on the developer ecosystem team at Google, and very recently assumed the responsibility alongside my co-program and community manager Jeanette, who's somewhere backstage orchestrating all this to make sure everything goes well, to support the Google Developer Student Clubs program across the US and Canada. I moved to the US about 18 months ago. And prior to that, I had worked in a similar role looking after the Google Developer Student Clubs and Google Developer Groups across Sub Saharan Africa. So that's everything Africa minus North Africa for like 6.5 years. So it's been 6.5 years working out of the offices in Lagos, Nigeria, and then 1.5 years working out of the Bay Area in California. Um, I want to share 10 tips to 10x your career in 10, whatever you want to do it, 10 days, 10 weeks, 10 months, 10 years. I strongly believe it is up to you to decide how you can progress your career, your personal development, even some of your personal relationships, using lessons I've learned, as I would often like to say, from the school of hard knocks. So that I've kind of like learned it the hard way. And one of the things I'm quite passionate about is, they say you can either sort of pay it forward, or if you climb a ladder, you should be able to even not remove the ladder or even lower it further so that it's easy for people to climb up that ladder with you. And then finally, one of the things I say when I give this particular talk, and it has evolved in a number of ways, is that this is kind of like advice to myself, or in another pattern, there are a couple of famous letters that maybe past historical figures wrote a letter to their son or wrote a letter to their younger self. So I think this is one of those, like, I wish I sort of had this information when I started out my career. I wish I could have sent it to my younger self. And above all, I wish I could even practice what I preach. So a lot of the things I'm going to share here are very opinionated. I think a few of them are sort of universal, and then you might have heard of them in a different way. But I do hope that I would say, personal nuggets I share here will apply. And yeah, I want this to be a very free flowing conversation. So the link on the screen, bit.ly/Annie-10 tips, takes you straight to this presentation. I want it to be sort of like an ask me anything. So feel free to pop your questions in the chat. If you're in the room, feel free to let the moderators know. And when I run through the presentation, kind of like in a bit of a flash, if there's any particular nuggets or statements or quotes that really triggers you, or you really want me to delve deep into, please let me know. And then after we've gone through like the 10 tips, we can actually come back. So without further ado, I'll go to the first one. And before I even do that, I'll just think of this, like, in our industry, especially in the technology industry, in the professional industry, there's a concept of going from zero to hero, right? I think this also came from like the automobile industry, where you hear about cars going from 0 to 60 in a particular time period, how many seconds or how many things like that. And then there's a famous book as well by Peter Thiel that goes with 0 to 1. But the 0 to hero normal is, or naming is something that's quite, you would hear it a lot. Um, one of the AI advocates at Google, Lawrence Moroney, has a talk on 0 to hero, about building your career or your knowledge in machine learning. So basically, my question to myself is, or my question to you, and a question I'm trying to answer is, how does one go from 0 to hero? And this is the first one. Start from where you are and start with what you have. Um, I'd like to put a bit of a lens or a picture into a bit of the background to this particular nugget. One, this stems a lot from, I would say, my background as well. I came from a middle class family in Nigeria, which is quite a distance from where I am right now. And all around me, there are a lot of factors that would limit one um, breaking through or having a very successful career. Now, that may not have directly applied to me, but it applies to people around me. In addition, there are lots of people who didn't have even the limited or the amount of privilege I did have. And if I look at their careers right now, they are sort of probably at the same level, even much higher, or doing much more. So start from where you are, start with what you have. I once interned with an uncle of mine, and the mantra he had in his company was, um, we don't buy or sell excuses here, right? And then I also sort of reframed that to say, if you look for an excuse, you will find one. What do I really, 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 really mean? So let me just dig into this. So, reflecting on my background, you could say, in Nigeria, in Africa, there's no light. There isn't available internet. You don't have all the resources. You don't have the best of, mentors or teachers or facilitators or facilities in terms of, universities, content, even just the basics like, you don't have a laptop, you don't have a high powered phone, and you could adopt any of those constraints as an excuse not to get to where you ought to be. But the truth is, if you pivot this scarcity mindset and just realize that where you are is literally all you need, and there's a slight distinction between what you need and what you want, but everything you probably need, you have. And then if you really take like one step back and acknowledge your privilege, right now, you may be in Hall Business School, you may be in another school somewhere in the US or anywhere around the world, you're on the internet consuming this content live or maybe recorded. You have access to the most amazing resource that ever existed, right? You have access to the internet. You now have access to this new phenomenon called AI, and with all the flavors it comes in, Gemini, ChatGPT. You literally can ask questions at the tip of a finger, and then just by snapping your finger, you can get the answers immediately. If you scale back, and although I'm a bit dated, but I'm not that old, I think when I started university or college, there was actually no Google, or Google was just getting started, right? There was little or no Wikipedia. And then I was in Nigeria. We didn't even have access to the internet. There were things that were called encyclopedias, right? Not Wikipedia, right? There was just a whole different format to how people looked for, found, and consumed information, the quality of that information, and how well they could validate that information, right? You would hear stories of people who learned how to code on a piece of paper and a pen, right? They didn't have a computer, they didn't have this. So if you go around and say, oh, I want to take on this career, I don't have a mentor, I'm not in the most fantastic school, I want to found a business, I'm not in Silicon Valley, how am I going to get venture capital? If you look for an excuse, you will find one. So start from where you are and start with what you have. If all you have is access to the internet, that's a lot. If all you have is one book on a specific topic or um, domain or area of interest, get serious with that particular resource and go from end to end. Usually, when you get started, and which is really very difficult. And I'm saying this because I even find myself in those shoes right now. It can be very difficult to get started, but once you get started, other things just kind of like line up for you, right? The dots kind of line up for you. So if you want to do anything in your career, if you want to pivot your career, and that's something that is, I think, even right now in the industry, in the world, it is really very important. So maybe you are a product manager and you want to go into software development, or you're a software developer or a data scientist or a business analyst, and you want to go into some kind of thing that is related to artificial intelligence, maybe AI or prompt engineering, or you want to learn how to do some data science. Don't wait for anything to be like the perfect environment or the perfect scenario. Just start from where you are and then start with what you have. So I'll go on to the next one. And then it gets a little bit, as we go through the steps, some of them get a little bit, mind bending and a little bit more not that straightforward, but it's still okay, right? So the second tip I would like to share is there is more than one path. Now, I see this a lot, especially in the industry where I really operate. People learning how to code, people learning how to get into technology, people trying to choose a career, and then they sort of look up to people as maybe role models or mentors and think that they need to do exactly what that person did to get to where that person is, right? So you feel you need to take a particular course, or you go to a particular school, or you need to get employed in a particular job or industry before you land, something better, right? Or you need to get some certifications or some degrees before you are able to achieve whatever your goals are. And the downside of this is that you could tend to switch paths left and right. So I would say with people who do like software development, they see a successful developer or a successful founder, and they're like, "Oh, okay, what programming language are you using?" And the person says, "Oh, I'm learning Python, and Python is great for data science." And they start learning Python and data science because they want to end up in the same job role company that somebody else is in, and then they go on that path. And then they see someone else, or they come up to a meetup, an event like this, or something different, and someone tells them about all the beauties of JavaScript. Oh, JavaScript is so great. It's for the front end, it's for the back end. It's even in the DB. You can use JavaScript for everything. You can use it for mobile apps. And then they start feeling like, oh, if I want to land a great job in a big tech company or in a promising startup, I need to go learn JavaScript. So you set your eyes on sort of like an end goal, whether that's financial freedom or job security or building a great company. Stick to the path you're going on and really sort of go down that path, I would say, thoroughly and for a reasonable amount of distance. Don't just jump or hop from left to right, trying to say, oh, if I want to do what this person is doing, I have to go to where this person went to. I have to go to the school, or I need to get into the accelerator they are part of, or I need to have had this experience before I start what I'm doing. There is more than one path. You can take your own path, and then you can look at checkpoints along the way. You can consume information. You can ask questions. You can make a conscious effort to continue making progress. And that is enough to get you to, I wouldn't say your exact final destination, but somewhere similar, if not the exact place you're going to. What's my take here? As you're learning, as you're maybe switching or pivoting, don't do it so much. Like I think there's an English proverb that says a rolling stone gathers no moss, right? You can't keep hopping from one path to the other. You can't keep changing lanes if you really want to succeed at what you're going to do. You need some depth, and to get some depth, you need a little bit of consistency. So when you do some sort of initial research on what you want to do, and you sort of maybe place a bet on a domain, a career, a subject, a boot camp, a learning course, just stick with it, right? You might even be on the same thing. Maybe you're learning product management, and then you hear there's a great course on Coursera, and then someone says, "Also, but LinkedIn Learning also has something great." And then you hear about product management school, or you hear about something else. You can't hop through all of them because you're trying to become a successful product manager at a successful company or a big technology or big product company. So there's more than one path. Stick to your path. Don't be too swayed away. It's okay to process that extra information about what's happening around you, but try and gain some ground, dipping your roots on a particular topic or domain before you jump around and switch left to right. Am I communicating? Am I still there?
Yes.
All right. Now, this one, the best way to learn is to teach. And that was where I coined this. But I think 3 years ago, when I was giving this talk somewhere in Port Harcourt, in Nigeria, someone tweeted or sort of shared like feedback during the Q&A that when you teach, two people are learning. Um, I'll add another dimension to this right now. Like, this could be a very profitable way to get noticed these days. As an influencer or a content creator, there's so many ways you can amplify your profile, your just by writing. So if you decide to take on something today, one of the reasons why I'm saying this is, um, I wish I took a lot of my advice. Right now, there are a few aspects of technology, about the industry, about startups and entrepreneurship that I'm learning that I think I should be teaching. I should be writing about blog posts. I'm great at Twitter, even though I've been quite silent this year. But share what you're learning. The first thing that happens when you're sharing is if you really wanted to make an intent to share, you wanted to write a blog post, you wanted to write an article, you wanted to give out lessons, you wanted to create short form content for YouTube Shorts or TikTok, you wanted to start a podcast about the things you're picking up or the how you're exploring, I don't know, AI or large language models or raising capital for your business, right? To do those things, you do a little bit extra research. Every time you want to teach, you take a step back and then maybe you outline your points, you try to put some structure to it, you do some extra research so that you can communicate clearly. So when you make an effort to teach, you actually learn better. So whatever you're doing right now, whether it's even just leading a study group or doing something with on campus or doing stepping up to take a session in school, or you're reading a book right now about behavioral change or psychology, or I don't know, you got inspired by some quote or some movie, some writing, share it. Just making an attempt to share it helps you learn better. And then, more importantly, you may be teaching someone. In the software industry, there's some very famous quotes or narratives where people are writing software, they're writing code, they run into a problem, they go ahead, they write a blog post about it, and then, or they do a short video. And then 2 years later, 5 years later, they run into a similar problem or even the exact same problem, and they go on Google or they go on Stack Overflow to search, and then they find their own blog posts or they find their own tutorial. So you may just be helping your future self, apart from the fact that being an influencer, being a content creator could really take you very far in today's very digital world. But like, you may be helping your future self. So teach when you're learning. Don't wait till you become an expert before you write your first post. Even the experience you had just getting to level one or getting to the first, I don't know, experiment or obstacle could be very helpful to thousands of people. And don't feel like, oh, no, there's enough Android 101 content. There's enough beginning to machine learning content out there. What do I want to add? What do I want to contribute? No, you can add your perspective, right? And that could be very helpful to people. So don't be discouraged from sharing the basics or from sharing what you've learned. And then always feel free to ask for feedback. Hey, if you read this article and you disagree with me, or if you have another view, or you feel this is not the right thing to do, or you would have done it differently, please let me know. You can build relationships, networks, mentorships. You can get a lot of outreach, you get a lot of recognition from just being proactive and sharing, teaching while you learn. Okay, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And this is the one that I'm a very impatient person, and that has cost me a lot. But every time I remember this, it is a marathon, not a sprint. Even for sprinters, whether it's the great Usain Bolt or anyone before then, if you know how much training they do just for that short, period where they feel like they're on top, or you see them performing at the highest level, you don't train for 10 seconds to run a 100-meter race under 9 seconds or close to 9 seconds. It takes years, it takes a long time. So this journey is going to take you some time. Now, this doesn't mean you should be complacent. It doesn't mean you should just sit back and like, yeah, I'm learning a little, but it's a marathon or the sprint is going to take time. Like, great marathon runners, they may not be running at top speed, but they keep moving, right? Even what's it called? Even just enthusiasts or hobbyist runners or marathoners, when they run and they get tired, or they just try to keep moving, they walk, they grab some water, from the side or something. You don't give up. It's going to be a long journey. So there's two thought, perspectives to this. It's a marathon, not a sprint. One is you just got to keep moving, can keep moving at a steady pace. Maybe there are times when your energy is really up there, and then you can sort of like increase the pace. But then no matter what it takes, just try as much as possible to keep moving. Try to keep learning. People say try to be a better person tomorrow than you were yesterday, right? But then also acknowledge the fact it's a long journey. When I talk to people in the technology or software development industry and all that, one of the things I tell them is it's going to take time. You can't read how many books in one day and then kind of like do 10 or 20 projects overnight or something and try to take 5 and then gain 2 years or 5 years experience overnight, right? It takes time, right? I think there was also used to be a quote from the great footballer Lionel Messi, or there was an advert that says it took 17 or 18 years to become an overnight success, right? It's a long journey, so pace yourself. Good thing is, like with the tech industry, whether you're going into digital marketing, data science, cybersecurity, software programming, you can start earning, making progress, building relationships, building a professional network very quickly. So you could take a boot camp that's 1 week or 10 days or 30 days or 6 months training, and then you land an internship or you start contributing to an open source project. So you can actually gain a lot of skills. It's like unlike some other industries where you have to be like maybe regulated or certified, or you have to be called to the bar, or you have to get a license as a medical doctor, and then you need to like work or study for 5, 10, 7 years, however it takes before you can, in quote, start practicing. With the tech industry and with a lot of jobs of today and careers of the future, you can pick up stuff in 1, 2, 3 weeks, and then you can become productive. You could even start earning money, whatever it is you're doing, digital marketing, selling the digital product, offering some sort of consulting service, if you're freelancing or copywriting, or there's so many things you can do that you start leveling up quite quickly. But keep it at the back of your mind that to attain true expertise, it's going to take time. I think is it Malcolm Gardner or who that says, it talks about 10,000 hours to become an expert or to master any skill or call. So it's going to take some time. So it's a marathon, honestly. Every time you get frustrated, every time you feel like I'm learning this thing, it's not getting it. What's going on? Just remember, it's a marathon, not a sprint. I would say, like a mentee who reminds me of this and teases me about this every day, that even when I complain or when she runs into any sort of difficulties, it is a marathon, not a sprint. Done is better than perfect. Now, this is where it starts getting a bit tricky and it starts getting very opinionated. But, I'll say this carefully. It's great. It's okay to strive for perfection, but it's not okay not to do stuff because you're trying to perfect that stuff, right? I have found myself in this situation many times, and sometimes the consequences have been fatal, like critical, right? Very, very impact was beyond my imagination. When you're working on something, it's a project, if it's writing, if it's a book, share feedback as quickly as possible. If you brain dump your thoughts, your ideas, if you run an outline, you can do an outline of a project or something you're working on, or a dissertation or assignment, and possibly share with someone. That could be your manager, that could be your friend, it could be your mentor, it could be your teacher, and then you can get feedback, and then you can improve upon it, right? Trying to be perfect and not showing up at all, not sharing something, not doing a draft, people may be relying on you, which is the kind of thing that happened to me once, where they feel you've got it and you're like, I've got it. I'm just, I need to align things in my head and I'm working on it. I'll get it to you by the end of day tomorrow. Or do you know what? I just want to format it. You might not even communicate all that externally, but you may be trying to be perfect, and you could easily end up doing nothing, or doing nothing spectacular. You could even end up in a situation where if you had a deadline and then you're working on a project or you're working on something, and then maybe the deadline is Friday, maybe the deadline is Monday, end of day Monday. If you had shared some of the things you're working on right now to get feedback, then you could improve on the quality of what you have submitted or what you're working on, and then meet the deadline on Monday. Now, if the people around you, your support system, your manager, your team, if you don't share anything with them, and then you wait until Monday, the deadline to share, either you don't share anything or you don't have anything, or you come with an apology, or you get something done. And honestly speaking, it's not very different from what you had created or what you could have created if you shared it the previous Friday. Then that could be a problem. So seek for feedback, right? Take that feedback. Sometimes you could be stuck. Sometimes you might not know anything about what you're doing. You may be completely lost. You may even be off track. So done is better than perfect. I usually give the kind of software examples, and there are a couple of them out there and some very recent, which I will not talk about. You need to put your product out there. How many of you, if you open up your phones right now and go and look at your app updates, you would see tons of apps that have updates. So with the software industry, you have updates. Like, did you see the first version of Facebook or Amazon's website, or the first version of G1, the Google Android phone, right? They may look crap right now, but probably maybe they were even crap back then, but they were done. And when it was out there, you can get feedback and you can improve upon it. You can get people to work with you, support your team, your dream, your vision, because you have done something, right? So there's no perfect system. My laptop, I had to update it this morning. This is a MacBook. This is Apple we're talking about. This is probably a company that has 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, probably 50,000 engineers working on various products. But there's still bugs and there's still new features that can be added. The product is never going to be perfect. It's always going to be done at a very high quality, no doubt, but it's never perfect, right? So some people would say perfection is the enemy of progress, or some people would say progress over perfection. It's really one and the same thing. Get stuff done so that you can get feedback, so that you can achieve, rather than trying to make it perfect. With people in software, especially like in the web development industry, they always have like a portfolio website they've never put out there. So I'm learning how to be a web developer. I'm working on my personal blog or personal portfolio website. It's on my laptop. It's on local host. You need to put it out there, no matter how crappy it is. Because when you go for a job interview, when you're looking for a role, when you're trying to join a team, when you're looking for people to even hire you or separate you from the rest of the pack, it's what you have put out there that sort of makes a difference. So done is better than perfect. Don't let your strife, don't let your pursuit of perfection stop you from getting stuff done. Okay. The only thing worse than a bad decision is no decision, right? You will be confronted with decision making every single day of your life, every single point in your career. You're going to have meetings, you're going to have action items, you're going to have to make choices, right? There's some very interesting matrices about how you make choices. I think Jeff Bezos has an amazing one about things that are important and urgent, things that are not important and not urgent, things that are not urgent but they're important. There's an entire matrix, so like a 2x2 thing around that, and it talks about things you should do immediately, you should delegate, and things that you should sort of like not spend too much time when you're making a decision. Like, what's the worst that could happen? If this is not a life-changing, life-threatening, mission critical, it's not like your decision is going to crash a company. It's not like, it's going to, maybe kill someone, like maybe you're doing an operation, medical operation or something. If it's not that critical, you need to have a culture of making quick decisions, right? Even if you need to make thoughtful decisions, they shouldn't take forever, right? If you are, I don't want to sound so morbid, but like if you're in a car that's heading down a hill and then maybe your brakes have failed, right? You have to decide. I mean, staying in the car and crashing, maybe a decision, making sure your seatbelt and everything is on, maybe jumping out, maybe trying to figure out something, but like just not making a decision because you're afraid of making a bad decision, It's not a way to go. It's not a way to go. I'll give you an example, even with like the software and coding industry. You have people who come to you and like, okay, I want to get into tech. Should I do front end or back end? Or should I do PHP? Like I had PHP, not a fancy language anymore. Should I be doing JavaScript or Python, right? And I've had a situation where someone, and I do go to a lot of events, and I mean, especially back pre-COVID eras, I used to see a lot of people, time after time, we have series of events that come in year after year. And someone would ask me a question, like, should I learn this or learn that? And then I would come back a year later, maybe it's a dev fest, and I'll see that same person. And literally the person would ask me the same question. I've really been thinking about getting into tech. What do you think I should do? Should I do back end or front end? I'm like, what's the worst that could happen? If you choose front end and you start learning and you find out it's not the best thing for you, then you can stop and switch and go to back end. And I know I said stay in your lane and then don't like uh don't jump from career to career and all that kind of stuff. But you've got to make a decision. Like, what's the worst that could happen? Imagine we're on a highway, or and this is very funny. When I gave this example, people were really laughing. Like, you hit a T junction, you can either go left or right? You can't say because you don't have network on your phone and your Google Maps is not loading, or you don't know which character, you can't find anyone to ask, you're going to stay in the intersection forever, right? If you know that maybe the airport is 5 kilometers in one direction, and then you hit the road and you drive 5 kilometers, it's a 50-50 thing. You could end up at the airport, or you could end up somewhere else, maybe on the beach or somewhere. Like, okay, yeah, I'm on the beach. This is wrong. I shouldn't have turned left on that intersection. I should have gone the other way, right? And then maybe you've had the pleasure of just seeing the beach and like enjoying the scenery and all that. But ultimately, you cannot, or you should not, for fear of making a bad decision, decide to do nothing. That's make no decision at all, right? Like I said, especially when it's not a fatal, mission critical decision. Sometimes we sort of amplify the magnitude of maybe a situation we're dealing with, or I don't know. But then we need to we need to build the capacity to make decisions, right? And you never know. I mean, it's not completely a lottery or 50-50. You could actually make an informed choice based on all the information you have at your point and decide whether to do this or to do that. And I'm sure many of us will find ourselves in these situations where, I mean, it may be elective courses, it could be anything. It could be career choices. When I finish school, should I get a job, or should I go to grad school, or go get a PhD or something? It could be anything. But don't, for want of not being sure of which decision to make, decide not to make any decision at all. How are we doing on time?
We are doing well. So good.
Okay, cool. Now here's the tough one. And like I said, it starts getting a bit, to get what you have never gotten before, you're going to need to do what you've never done before. This is pretty simple, but I think at times we make big mistakes about this, or we do not contextualize this enough, because this is something we do every day, right? You want to get into grad school, you've got to apply, right? If you want to, get out of high school and get into college, you're going to have to take some exams and apply for some things. If you want to get a promotion at work, or you want to get a particular job, let's say you want to work at, I don't know, you want to work at Google, right? And you've never applied to Google before, you probably should at least try to apply to Google, and that may be something you've never done before to get it, right? That's oversimplifying it, but like, when you put in the effort at something, maybe you're at work and you're not getting a fantastic rating because you've been given feedback about, some aspect of your weaknesses at work, or it could be anything, right? It could be that you're studying for an exam, something like, oh, I don't like statistics, I don't like maths, I don't like this, and I don't like that. And then you're constantly not doing well, and that's affecting, your grades and everything. If you've never doubled down on learning a topic or committing time, sleepless nights, and I don't really recommend that, but sometimes it's necessary, putting that extra effort, then it's not going to happen. If every single textbook you have, encountered, self-study, you've never completed every single Coursera course, or Udemy course, or Udacity course, or EDX course, you've always stopped halfway, right? You've never gone to the end. And then you're asking, so how am I going to get that great job at this great company? Or how am I going to, become this consultant? You probably need to ask yourself, okay, this stuff that I keep dropping halfway, I never complete, I never dedicate double time to it, I never finish all the training. I don't You're gonna have to do it, right? So if you really desire something, like get what you've never gotten before, you're probably gonna need to do what you've never done before. And if you I try to tell people to reflect on this. If you look at a lot of times you've made significant progress in your career, your life, your school, whatever it is, if you connect the dots backwards, there probably is a point or an instance or something you can reflect on that really, really says, I know it's because I did this, I got this, right? I reached out to this person, I went to that event against all odds. This literally is step out of your comfort zone, right? You're going to have to just do something. Maybe you go to meetups and you're the shy person, and it's not wrong to be whether introverted or whatever. And when you go, you just take the content and then you walk away. You've never like given yourself, okay, I'm going to take a shot at meeting 4 people I don't know, introducing myself. Hopefully one of those will lead into a relationship or a partnership or some kind of friendship that would be useful to me. Maybe you go for an event and you never raise up your hand to ask questions because you don't want to be noted or you don't want to sound stupid or something, any of those excuses. Like you've never raised up your hand for that. Then how do you build a connection with, that facilitator or that resource person? Maybe you've never volunteered to run a nonprofit or a group on campus or club, like, what you guys are doing right now. Some of that extra stuff you do just does amazing stuff for you, right? Some of you have decided to join the GDSC and lead a club. And all of a sudden, you now have 20, 30 contacts at Google that know you on a first name basis that probably can write a referral for you when it's necessary. And then maybe you then get invited to summits or team events or conferences that only a select group of people are then invited. And then all of a sudden you build an international network of friends, of colleagues or peers, right? It's very likely that this was stuff you've never done before, or this was a tough decision to make when the application period opened, like it's going to open very soon, right? So if you really, really look at it, you're going to have to do something extra to be extraordinary. You're going to have to add the extra in front of the ordinary. Okay. And now this one is almost the same thing. So if you do what you've never done before, you'll likely get what you've never gotten before. And I like to say this one like jokingly and also just look at it from a different perspective. Let's say every time you walk into Walmart or any shop, Smart and Final, Safeway, you go, you get stuff off the shelf, the things you like, walk to the checkout counter, you pay for it, cash card, whatever, NFC, and then you walk out, great, What if you did that one day? Went into the shop, grabbed things off the shelf, loaded your shopping cart, and just decided to walk out without pay. Like, if you do what you've never done before, you'll likely get what you've never done before, right? If you run a red light, something you don't normally do, right? Too much on the negative side, but like every time, and like I said, I'm just going to go back to the previous one and say like these are like literally equivalent. To get what you've never gotten before, you need to do what you've never done before. And then if you do what you've never done before, you likely get what you've never gotten before. So if you put in that extra effort, if you double down on that, learning path and stick to it, if you, instead of giving excuses, you decide, oh, you know what, I want to learn more about machine learning and large language models and prompts. So I'm going to take on this course this weekend. I'm going to skip that party. I'm not going to hang out with the folks. I'm not going to pay my Netflix subscription. It's been running every month for the last 36 months. This month, I want to spend time on YouTube and Coursera rather than, Netflix and Disney and Hulu and all that. Doing stuff like that, making those very conscious sacrifices with purpose can get you very far. And I say this because the results are not even very hard to see. Sometimes it's tough. It's giving up some, friendships, some associations, whatever it is, or putting a hold on some things temporarily because you have like a mission or something you're targeting. So honestly speaking, there's a saying that goes like, if you do the same thing over and over again and expect a different result, that's kind of like, maybe, I don't know, insanity or something like that. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different result. If you really want a different result, you're going to have to do things differently. Um, One of my friends, mentors, also says, and I think this is also very common. They were like, have I lost the train of thought? It is, I was talking about, if you do what you've never done before, you likely get what you've never done before. Like, what got you here can't take you to the next level. It's almost impossible, right? If if you if you took, I don't know, some in Nigeria, we have this exam we call common entrance, right? If you took an exam to get from, you know, elementary school to middle school or to high school or to secondary school, when it's time to get into university, right, or college, you can't go and bring the results from your elementary school and say, hey, I'm an excellent student or pupil or learner. Can you grant me admission into that? No, the stuff that qualified you to get to level one or level two or to L4 or to E5 or whatever, or to staff engineer, that you can't present the same set of credentials to get you to senior staff engineer or to manager to exec, right? You're gonna have to do something extra. So what got you to this level is not enough to take you to the next level. Now be careful. There's something about contentment, and these are bigger life questions that you may face later on. It's okay to be content. And one of the things I'm doing in my personal life, since I'm sharing a lot about things I learned, I'm not really giving you the Bible for progress. I'm saying things for like that apply to me. It's okay to learn to be content, maybe satisfied with the level you are, the responsibilities you have. Um, do good by yourself. So if you've attained a specific level in the corporate world, the ladder, your ambitions, your finances, I think it's okay to coast for a while, or maybe even just, you may decide, I don't want to do this kind of work anymore. I want to, do something different, or, I want to get out of the rat race. Maybe you start a lot of money or you've cashed out on your startup or something. You can decide to be content with your current levels, without being complacent. But honestly, if you are on the traditional or on that like growth trajectory, if you're really, focusing on trying to elevate yourself, you're going to have to do extra, and there's no way about it. Now, the final tip, pretty straightforward. One day or day one, you decide. Um, it's still all about excuses. It's all about procrastination. Um, I know that everyone on this call, there's probably something you've decided you're going to do one day. You know, when everything is right, when everything is together, when all the ducks have lined up. When the environment is perfect. Only once I just get a job and I start making money and I can take this course. Or once I just move out of this place and get my own place and have my own laptop, or like I want to get into virtual reality when I get the Apple Vision Pro, because I need like $3,500 so I can start building for augmented reality. There's so many things you can do that dials back to not getting started or not making that first step. The proverbial Chinese proverb, take the first step, for the journey of 1,000 miles. Yeah, just kidding. But like, one day or day one, you decide, and today could be your day one. My strong hope is that today you make that decision, that yes or no decision, that in quote potentially bad decision rather than no decision, to go for that thing you've been pushing further down the line, right? Decide that no matter how small it is, whether it's exploring a career, whether it's chasing a passion, whether it's maybe going on a diet, going to the gym, whatever it is you're trying to really achieve, you're trying to really succeed at, try to make today be that day one where you decide, and probably day one where you take action. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Aniedi. I would open it up to our participants now. I guess this is the fireside chat section. So if you have any questions for Mr. Aniedi, please feel free to just ask.
I had a question. One of the points was that you can't do the same thing you did before and expect a different result. My question is, how do you get over that hump of being afraid to do something new and failing?
Great question. What's the worst that could happen? Like I think there was a quote. There was something I signed up for, and I think it was called onemonth.com or so. And then we got on the session, and one of the first slides we encountered was like, what would you do if you were not afraid, right? And conquering your fears is such a big um what's the word? It is a big challenge, but it's such a big achievement. Like you need to conquer the fear of failure, right? In Nigeria, we say, if you worry, you die. If you don't worry, you die. So why worry, right? And worrying about a situation can take you back. Like so, like just that. Really think about it. Like I said, when I was talking about the decision making and like just taking that first step, if it's not urgent, it's not important, it's not critical. If making this decision is not going to change your life, if it's not like should I jump off a moving plane or something? Should I take off my seatbelt and open the emergency exit? It's okay to make those decisions, and it's okay to sort of be comfortable with failure. We've had those proverbial inspirational quotes of, hey, Thomas Edison tried to invent light bulb 99 times or 999 times. Just imagine if he was afraid of failure, right? It is obvious that he wasn't afraid of failure, right? He may have failed the first time and it may have hit him really hard. But if because he failed or because there was a potential to fail, he now said he's not going to do anything again, where would we be today, right? Um, Even, I mean, within Google, people sometimes, externally say, oh, you start too many products and then you fail at them. And then, there's the whole graveyard of killed by Google and all this kind of products. But like sometimes you need to do something so that when it doesn't work, you now know one way it's not going to work. So that when you're going to make your next decision or you're going to find yourself in a situation with 3 or 4 people or with yourself, and this thought or this kind of action comes up, you're like, nope, that's not going to work. I'm very sure, been there, done that. It's not going to work, right? So I think information is helpful. So when you want to make a decision, when you encounter some fears, I think you need to have first of all that internal resilience and that critical thinking of what's the worst that can happen. What am I going to commit to this? I know it could cost money, it could cost time. What's the opportunity cost of making this decision, right? And try and really honestly try to get to an answer that, I mean, consider all the options. That gives you a lot more courage to do it. And then look for some external source of validation that can help you minimize the risk or the cost of failing. And then ultimately, just do it, right? You really have to get to a just do it kind of mindset. I've looked around a lot of successful people around me and people even on my team right now who I kind of really admire the way they work or get stuff done. And I realized that sometimes they don't have all the answers, they don't have everything lined up. They just do it and kind of figure out along the way. Now it's not luck or hoping on hope or just chance. They definitely do put in the work. And when you see them putting in the work, you may think they know it all or they have everything figured out. Absolutely not. They might know 30% or 50% or have, some of the information, and then they just go for it. So just do it, but do it intelligently. Do a little bit of analysis. What's the worst that could happen? How do I minimize the risk? What's the opportunity cost of doing this? And once you're able to realize that it's not going to cost you anything fatal, or you're not going to create some kind of chaos, just go ahead and do it, learn along the way.
I had one more question.
Sure.
Have you applied the 10 tips to yourself and did it 10x your career in 10 years?
Ha. So here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to 10x my career in I think in 10 months. And then when I talk about 10x in your career, there's a lot of things that come here. So one is the obvious one, money, right? Could you be earning, I don't know, $10,000 a month, or maybe say $40,000 per annum on a job, and can you elevate your career to $400,000 a month? I mean, a year. Could you be in technology and earning maybe 100K or 200K a month and trying to get that to $2 million a month? Do people earn $2 million a month? Of course, $2 million a year. Of course, people do, right? It's obvious, right? If you do anything like levels of FYI or blind, you hear some really outrageous salaries, right? And then when you look up to some of those people and see what they do and the responsibilities they carry, it's possible, right? And then you can actually see the difference. You can see the gap between you and them. No cap about that. The other thing is sometimes it's impact, right? So just imagine you're a public speaker. Imagine this talk I'm giving. I could be giving it to an audience of 10, 20 people, but I'm afraid to apply to a bigger conference that's going to have 10,000 attendees, or could have, a much bigger audience, a much bigger impact, right? So sometimes it's impact, sometimes it's influence. The what do you call it? The money part is significant, and that could be your goal. You could be an individual contributor at a company and then managing just yourself, and then you do some of these things and elevate to another level where you become a manager or team lead or head of department, and all of a sudden you're mentoring or you're leading or you're managing 10 people, right? And the reason why I kind of put the question marks at the beginning about 10x in your career is I think it's up to you to decide how aggressive you want to be. Obviously, I have 10x to my career in 10 years, right? If I go 10 years back in time, I probably earned more than 10 times what I used to earn then. And I think 10 years is probably a, what's the word? It's a safe bet to talk about 10x in your career, especially when you're on that growth trajectory. 10 months is I think it's that
10
that
months,
tough
that's not
place.
a bit aggressive.
Yeah, but it's a very aggressive one, but it's not impossible, right? You could, especially depending on exactly where you're starting from, right? Because this comes from sort of asymptotic kind of curve, so somewhere at the beginning of your career. I mean, if you're working and you're earning, I don't know, $20 an hour, maybe doing, at a coffee shop, or at In-N-Out or McDonald's or something, and then you decide, okay, do you know what? I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to jump into tech or cybersecurity, and then in 10 weeks or 10 months, I'm going to take a boot camp. It's completely possible. It's probably harder the higher up you go, but I know it's not impossible. And sometimes it's also a question of value, right? You could be doing a role in a small startup tech company, a local business, where you're doing even exactly what I'm doing now, maybe developer relations or program management, but it is a small company with a very small market cap and limited, community size or audience. And honestly, the best they can pay you is $1,500 a month, right? And then as you elevate your career, as you become more visible, as you take on more responsibilities, as you go out there looking for opportunities, as you put yourself in that semi-uncomfortable situation and step outside your comfort zone, you could move from that to a Fortune 100 or Fortune 50, Fortune 10 company, and literally exactly the same amount of work and the same amount of effort you were putting, but now operating at a different level is 10 times what you were doing, right? Think of guys in sports, right? You could be playing basketball 3-on-3 in your neighborhood and be the best player, right? And or working playing for a small local league team. And then all of a sudden you go from there or go from the NCAA college, and then you start playing NBA basketball. It is possible to 10x your career. And I can tell you a lot of the things that folks do, to get to that level of, that, 1% superstar, rock star kind of thing. It usually is. I think there's some similarities between some of the things I've shared in the slides.
Thank you.
If Are there any other questions, Mr. Akin?
My question is this: in as much as for me, like going through your LinkedIn profile, and see your career trajectory. I think it's like it shows like you really connect. But what were the challenges you faced along the way, and how would you say you surmounted those challenges?
Okay, I didn't completely hear the question. I think you're slightly far away from the microphone, but I heard so much challenges. Can someone just
Let me
rehash?
repeat the question.
Okay, what I'm saying is, looking at your career trajectory so far, I can see like you've done a lot of TEDx, like you've done it quite a lot in your career. Now, so what I'm asking is, like gray area, what are the challenges you faced, and how did you surmount those challenges? Because I can see from Uyo to Lagos, from Lagos to from Lagos into California, Mountain View.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did you surmount those challenges?
Yeah, great question. I think the first thing is ambition, right? Just limit it. And this is yourself. Sometimes you exclude yourself from some opportunities because you feel it can't be me. It's not me they're looking for. I'll tell you, when I was applying for the job at Google, then I was in Lagos. I was working for a startup. And then when this role became available, or the role became available, I looked at the application page and I decided I wasn't going to apply. In fact, I started applying. And when they started asking me a couple of questions, at the time I said, well, it's not me they're looking for. Maybe they're looking for someone from Stanford or someone that has, like, in Nigeria we say IJGB. I just got back. Somebody who's done a master's in maybe Hart Business School or Yale or somewhere, right? So I just felt like this is not me. It's not someone who schooled all his life in Nigeria, doesn't have a second degree. This can't be me they're looking for. So that self-doubt is absolutely one of your biggest problems. You need to be audacious. You need to be able to raise up your hand and take some opportunities and say, I'm here, I can be counted. I'll tell you, when I let go, there was a role that happened somewhere in my career. I won't be too specific. And then when it became available, I looked at it and I didn't apply for it. And then I think a year later, when someone got hired into that role, I was speaking to someone who could have been a mentor or sponsor to me, like a senior person in the industry, and we were talking. And what the person told me was, "What, you were interested in that? Why didn't you tell me? Do you know we could have made some accommodations for you and put you on kind of like maybe an improvement path or a succession plan? Because we were actually looking for someone like you, but I just felt that what you're doing now, you were so invested in it and that you wouldn't be interested." So if I had dropped the hint or made an attempt or even applied, and when they did the initial screening, they saw my name, I probably would have been given a shot at that opportunity. And it was a huge one, right? So the second thing is, and then we're in Black History Month and everything. Sometimes you have to, people say this, and it happens with a lot of underrepresented, and I don't want to really delve into there because I don't want to I don't want to tokenize it. But sometimes you have to work twice as hard to get half the recognition that some other people with any form of privilege get, right? So putting in the work, sometimes you will do things and they will be misinterpreted, or you would have the wrong feedback to yourself or from the people around you, and then you have to course correct. So sometimes it needs a little bit of humility to say, oh geez, I got this wrong. I need to do this differently, and then go back and do it again. So you will stumble, right? You will get passed by, like something you feel belong to you. You may feel entitled to it. It may not come your way. Somebody else may have an easier path or a lighter burden, and then you would find yourself either complaining or doubting yourself, right? It's going to happen. Like, even at any point in time in your career, you could be going through, in quote, hell, but you have to put up a strong face and you got to show up. So one of the things I think I have done pretty well in my career is every time I've been put down, it is absolutely painful, heartbreaking. Sometimes you want to crack, but then just stand up again, and then let bygones be bygones, right? So they say if you fall 7 times, make sure you stand up 7 times or 8 times, right? So those are some of the challenges you would experience. But I think it's very important to understand your circle of influence and the things you can control and the things that are completely out of your control. The things that are out of your control, don't worry about them. And I say this because there's also one of the things I've learned for the last 1 or 2 years and really internalized is there's a difference between concern and worry. So when you say don't worry about them, it's not like completely ignore them. You can show some concern. Oh, what does this mean? Damn, if I don't do this, this is what's going to happen. This opportunity may come and go. It's okay to be positively concerned about the situation, but you like start worrying. Oh, what's going to happen? I'm in trouble. You don't get anywhere. So to just like really internalizing that whole let me do this, right? That's helpful. I think the other thing I'll mention here is, and I think there's a quote from I think famous hockey player, I think Wayne Gretzky or something. Like you have to anticipate where the ball is going to end up, right? People will talk about this in the football, like, yeah, this guy has positional awareness. Sometimes they're always hailing, football Messi. And actually, you do a bit of Ronaldo, but like he knows where to hang out or where to stray to, or how to position yourself. Sometimes you need to look at an industry and figure out where it is going. Right now, it's almost so clear and almost slightly, I won't say late, right about time, but you could have been early to the party if you looked at things like AI jobs of the future. Even the time when there was this whole hype or rain about things like I think there was a time where there was a lot about big data, there was a thing a lot about cloud, there was a thing even about blockchain. Now there's a lot of hype about AI. Now, the thing about these phases or these inflections in humanity or history or whatever is they are significant. You absolutely can't ignore them. So right now, if you sit down and look at the industry and you ask, where are things heading? What's clicking? What may be in vogue or in demand in the immediate future, or can't wait till I graduate? You have to look a little bit ahead and take some leaps, right? The last thing I would say, and I think that it just didn't pass my mind, is I think there's an element of what I would call something else, right? And everyone has to acknowledge what that something else is. And please process it the way you want. I don't want to be too prescriptive. For some, it's faith, it's luck, it's fate, Fate. It is belief in a spiritual being or supreme power, or whatever it is. I think there's an element of that sort of nudges people along or sets the stage for people when you're trying to make, career changing or, trying to elevate 10x your impact or your career. It's impossible to rule that aside. But here's what's important. They say, I think fortune favors the prepared, the brave, or whatever like that. You can create your luck, right? If you are doing something, and two people are literally at the same level or the same pedestal, doing a little extra could just help you stand out from someone else. And then when you look at that little extra, everybody else will call it luck. You probably are the only one that knows it was the extra I did. So you can create your own luck. You can create that sort of opportunity, in Nigeria, call it grace or favor. But when the opportunity comes, and this is one prayer I kind of have, when that opportunity comes, the last thing you want to be is unprepared. That will hurt you. And at times in my own life, in my own career, there's some situations I found myself, and I thank God that in quote I got a second chance, or I got another opportunity. Or when I think of the way I acted, reacted, behaved, or embraced something, or the attitude I portrayed, I thank God it happened then and not at some other later stage, because in that situation the losses would have been, or the consequences could have been more, more consequential, for want of a better word. So dialing back to your question, I think it's really all about having that strong belief in yourself, killing the sense of entitlement, even when you have that entitlement, when something is in quote for you, belongs to you, it feels like your name is all over it, right? Just put in that extra effort. And then if you get passed by, or if you fail, or something doesn't land well, don't give up. It's not the end of the world.
Alex?
Yeah. Sorry, I have class, so I kind of missed a chunk of your presentation, but I have three questions.
Sure.
My first question is, will these slides be shared?
Yes, they are already shared in the group chat.
Okay, that's amazing. And then my second question is, what did you do to prepare your 10x, or what did you do to prepare as in 10x your career? In terms of like mindset changes, did you read specific books? I think you already kind of answered my question as to whether you got a mentor or not. But how did you find your mentor? Because sometimes like certain mentors that you might look up to, there are certain spaces that you don't necessarily have access to. So how do you stand out and get their attention and be like, you should mentor me, or I'd like to be like you, things like that. And then my second, okay, no, I'll let you answer this, and I'll bring the second question.
Okay, good one. So I have my very strong views on mentorship, right? And that's because I've sort of analyzed and tried to process and internally understand um, this whole relationship of someone who can lift you up. I don't know if you are maybe Nigerian or something. I think I get a hint of that. When we talk about a destiny helper, right? Okay, so here's what it is. I've been quoted once on Twitter, and I think I may have deleted that tweet. Is that you want a mentor, you don't need a mentor. And this is very controversial. I think if you've got a mentor, it's great. It's absolutely amazing. And I'll come to some other part where you talk about standing out for your mentor. But here are some of those relationships and some of those categories, and I'll try to put it in a way that you can always remember. I think there are different levels to that, destiny helper relationship. One is a role model, one is a mentor, and then one is a sponsor. And then I used to use those three. And then recently someone got me to try and understand that you could also have a coach. And a coach is somewhere between a mentor and a sponsor, right? So let me define them for you. A role model, you can role model anyone. And then your role model doesn't know you. So right now, your role model could be Sundar, it could be Satya Nadella, it could be Elon Musk, it could be anyone, right? Back in the days, we had all these books, that people wrote their biographies, and then you would buy a book, right? You could buy Hit Refresh, you could buy, any of those books written by these authors, and then you would go and read them to kind of look at the path and the decisions they made, their thought process, and some of the nuggets they dropped along the line. It is very easy to make anyone your role model, even if you're a sportsman or whatever. It could be Tiger Woods, it could be Michael Jordan, it could be LeBron, it could be anyone. You're free to choose a role model, so you will know your role model. Unfortunately, your role model doesn't know you. Now, these days, that could be something like following someone on LinkedIn or Twitter, especially when those people post a lot about how they share. I think a lot of the things people don't understand in the mentor-mentee relationship is that sometimes it's more difficult for the mentor. Do you know what it means to help people make decisions, like to unlock people's situations and almost position yourself for the blame game? You're the one that told me to do this. I did what you said, and look at where I am today, right? It's tough, right? If I'm making decisions for myself, it's a different ball game entirely. It goes wrong. Like, okay, damn, I've lost money or I've wasted time. If I'm making that decision for you, it's a very tough one. So the mentor-mentee relationship can be tough. So the mentor, on the other hand, is someone that you know who almost kind of could be a role model for you already, like their finance, social status, their career, the kind of networks they keep, the things they belong to or they're part of, and you really, really like that. But then they know you, unlike the role model your mentor knows you. You have them on speed dial, you can DM them, you can call them, You meet them every now and then, and they literally kind of like show you around. A good mentor would be able to ask the right questions when it comes to you. Like they probably would not be completely prescriptive. They would be. It's more. There's a lot more investigation. They would come to you with a, why is this a problem? Why? In mentorship, even in the startup ecosystem, there's something we call the 5 whys. When you say, "Oh, I want to build the next so and so app," and I'm like, "Why?" And then you answer that question, and I go, "Why?" And then we go, "Why?" 5 good times to really know the reason why you want to make a decision or take, an action or start a company or found a business, right? So a good mentor would try to elicit the right thoughts and answers from you, empowering you to do that introspection and make your own decision. Ultimately, at the end, what a mentor may also do, they may put themselves in a position more often than not where they would like situate themselves in your position and say, if I were you and I was faced with the same options, I probably would go with this because this is what I'm getting from you, right? It's very important that they put you back or put themselves in your shoes and not just tell you what to do. So that's very good mentor. They speak to you, speak to them, you are there, whether it's electronic or not. Like I said, you can DM them on whatever platform, and then they can literally show you. And that is one, like I said, the relationship all of us want. But it's not all of us can have it. It's not, even when you're mentoring people, you cannot mentor more than 3 or 5 people, diligently, unless you're really, really, really skilled at that, right? So your mentor speaks to you, speak to your mentor literally when you people are physically there. But that's not the most important relationship to me, right? I think the higher level of the relationships is the one we call the sponsor, right? And what they say about the sponsor is that the sponsor speaks about you when you're not there. So that they're trying to make a decision: who should they give this role? Who will be the best person to select? We're trying to form a committee. We're trying to give a job. We're trying to elicit a promotion. Sometimes you don't even know that person has spoken about you and recommended you, and you may never know. In fact, very good sponsors will never come and tell you, "I put you there," right? It's in Nigeria that people come and tell you, "I put you there." It's not me give you that work, that kind of thing. So a sponsor is that relationship, and like we should be looking for sponsors, not even mentors. But I agree that it's an elevated relationship after you have a mentor. Your mentor can end up being your sponsor. After mentoring you and seeing all the great stuff you're doing, they could go into a room where you don't belong, just like you talked about, where you can't enter, and then they speak on your behalf. And then they vouch for you. They stake their neck for you. They invest in you, and you might not even know, right? Now, the fourth relationship that we kind of talk about or are beginning to kind of like adapt is the one they call a coach. Now, the coach is deeper than a mentor. Coaches are literally there every day of your life. Like, and if you have a coach, man, you are very lucky. Now, there's some kind of skilled coaching where you can take a coaching class or you can take a boot camp and people guide you. I'm not sure that's exactly coaching, but like the coach, think of a football team, think of an athlete, think of a musician or a voice coach or whatever. Like these people are, in fact, they may not even be able to do what you can do. I'm not even sure Messi's coach can play football as well as Messi, right? For those of us who are like Chelsea fans, like how good was Mourinho's football, right? And all that kind of thing. But what a coach does is they literally watch you do what you do, and then they point out stuff that you may be doing wrong and set you on the path to do the right things. They bring in a lot of experience and really literally spend a lot of time on that relationship with you. So my question now becomes, if you don't have a coach or you don't have a mentor, are you saying you're not going to try and make progress in your career? So I think you can start with the role model one. And like I said, even with just social media and all these other things, try and curate that thing so that when you say you're following, you know what it means to follow people? I mean, if you're a Christian, you know that disciples follow Jesus. Like you need to be very careful who you're following. Right. And these days, with the way these algorithms work and everything, it really occupies your mind. So you need to curate your timeline, right? I'm not saying you can't follow, I don't know, the Shade Room or TMZ or Instablog Nigeria or some of those things for the fun of it, but you really need to create who you're following. And then the final thing, which comes to your question about positioning yourself, literally when you do the work, when you put in a lot of effort, when you put yourself out there, it's easy to attract mentorship. When you ask people who are senior or who are up there what you want from them, how you want to relate with them, they do a little bit of due diligence. They will check your timeline. They will ask you, what have you done? What are you working on? Where are you? Like, look at football scouts or sports scouts. Probably everybody wants Messi on their team, or they want someone to like. I want to coach you. If you're the next great big thing, I want to be connected with you. How will I know you're the next great? Maybe you're the hardest worker. Maybe you're the most talented. Maybe you're even the most outgoing. And sometimes that can be a problem. Like, this one is seeking for attention and blah 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 blah. But you need to do something to be motivated. You need to outwork other people. You need to put in the effort, reach out. You need to, like you said, you could ask a lot of people for this advice or mentorship or relationship, and you may get a lot of no's. You can't give up. You can't give up on that one person, and you can't give up on all the other people that you feel could be sort of like a mentor. But I would say try and do something outstanding. One example I tend to give is I don't like when people, let me say this carefully, when people ask me questions they first of all have not even asked maybe Google, Wikipedia, or YouTube. Why do you come to me and ask me what is cloud computing or what is artificial intelligence? The better way to frame that question is, I've been trying to figure out artificial intelligence and how it could be helpful for me as a software developer and an accountant. I've seen this, I've heard of machine learning, I did a bit of study, I even wrote a small article about this, or while I was doing this, I read this book and I got stuck. At this point, I wanted to go into cloud computing. Now I'm hearing about platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, Kubernetes. I'm completely confused. How does all that come in? How is that useful for fraud detection in the financial industry or for a fintech app? You ask me a question like that, I want to have a conversation with you. It's an intelligent question. It shows me you've done some of your work and your research. If you come to me and ask me, what is cloud computing? Nah, I don't like that. So putting in the work, framing your ask, even when you're asking for that mentorship. Hey, I'm trying to build a startup, or in the next 2 years, I want to make sure I'm qualified to be able to work as an independent freelancer or a product manager in a Fortune 200 company with a focus on finance and this. At the moment, what I'm doing is I'm in grad school. I'm also taking a course on the side on cybersecurity, and I just finished completing a certificate on blah, 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 blah. Or I volunteer in Global Shapers or this and that. And when you position yourself that way, you're more likely to be mentored. People want you in their network. If I was an investor or someone who spends time with people, maybe I'm an angel investor, if there's a sea of 1,000 developers who are learning how to code or learning how to build solutions, I'm an investor. I want to make money. I want to find in those 1,000 people who are the 3-4 serious-minded people or teams who are trying to do something significant. And that's where I want to put my $1,000 or $10,000 because I want to try and grow that money. I want to invest that money. I want to have some impact in that money. So yes, you almost answered the question yourself. You really need to do something to stand out so that when you approach people for mentorship, they accept you. On the other hand, many times they will reach out. I know how many times I have recommended or vouched for people that honestly I do not know in person. Literally, I've only seen their tweets, or I've followed them, or I've read a blog post, an article from them, and then subscribed to their newsletter. And then, of course, I'm a little bit of a position of privilege. I'm in the industry, so I could be way up there, and I see this. It doesn't even have to be young person. It could be someone who's doing a career change, but like seeing someone putting in a lot of effort and sharing back, and I just take note of that person. And then someone comes to me and like, hey, we want to run this. Recently, someone came to me and said, hey, we want to run some activity governance civic tech thing in Nigeria. We're looking for someone who's active in the XYZ space and has a balanced view and is looking for and has some integrity. I recommended 2 people I don't know, but I've sort of followed them, and I've been in either conversations or threads where I loved the take, the reactions that they had, and I'm like, this guy is solid, right? And I've put their names forward, right? And then oftentimes they'll be like, someone comes to me and like, I heard that XYZ person said you told me to contact them or something like that. And I'm like, yes. And then, of course, a friendship and that thing builds. Or then they come and say, is it okay if I reach out to you every other time or anything I have a situation? So, yeah, put yourself out there and try to do something extraordinary that makes you a strong candidate for that mentorship that you seek.
Thank you. Um, my last question is, I don't know if you mentioned anything about like writing a 10-year plan, but if you have or even haven't, but have advice about writing it, how would you go about writing a 10-year plan, and how would you suggest someone should start to like put in the actions to achieve the 10-year plan?
Oh, wow. I don't have a 10-year plan. I wish I did. Maybe I'm going to take it as an action item. Um, but if you know things about vision boards, I think vision boards are very powerful. And for people who really do those illustrated or visual boards, vision boards, like where do you want to be? Like there's that whole exercise that you co-create with people where, it could be a virtual one, and then you put a headline. What headline do you want to see in the newspaper 10 years from now about you? Where do you want to live? Blue waters, white sandy beaches. Is that kind of place you want to see yourself? Do you want to see yourself at the top of a company, wearing a suit, or do you want to be the founder on an e-scooter and a white t-shirt or a gray t-shirt and slacks, and then you have like how much in your bank account? I think it's okay to do a vision board. A 10-year plan, I need to think about that. Obviously, you want to 10x your career in 10 years or 10 months. So people look at your bank balance now or your income statement and like, why am I only getting $1,000? I need to get 10,000, right? But yeah, I don't have the exact resources for that because I can't like one-to-one, but I think that's a great exercise. And I've shared my um, I'm active on Twitter, but like maybe I'm literally Aniedi Udo almost everywhere. Instagram, not that fine anymore. Gmail, Twitter. Reach out with a DM, and maybe it's an exercise we can do together. Because I do need a 10-year plan, but I think my 10-year plan is just to have plenty of money and retire or something like that. I think that's what my 10-year plan is. I have no idea how to get there, but I'm working on it.
Thank you.
Um, if there are no other questions from the audience, I actually have two questions of myself, Mr. Aniedi.
Sure.
From my personal experience, I've been trying to stay ambitious, stay hungry, continue pushing, but then it's starting to get to a point where my personal relationships are starting to suffer. I barely even have enough time for myself, and I'm just spreading myself into many responsibilities.
Yeah.
At what is there even a point where it's considered too much, and is there like is there such a thing as balance as well for that high ambition, high hunger?
Yeah. Great question. A lot of times we get asked that question, how do you find work-life balance? And sometimes the answer is that there's nothing like work-life balance. um, but there is. The way you find balance is you need to really do an audit on all the things you do, all the things you're involved in, and all the places you go to, where your money goes to. You start seeing trends, and then you can start doing a little bit of a process of elimination or reallocation. I can do a little more of this and a lot less of that. I think you need to literally list the people in your life that matter, right? Most times, 99% of the time, that starts with family. So, like from your immediate, siblings, parents, loved ones. If you're in a relationship, if you have kids, depending on where you are. I think you need to write that list down because sometimes, let me tell you what happens to me. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and then I go and click one person's WhatsApp status. And before I know, I've watched 300 people's status in my contact and 1.5 hours have passed. That is very, very bad, right? So you need to curate a small list of the relationships that absolutely do matter to you, and try to be a bit more intentional about sustaining those relationships. Now, the people part of work-life balance or life balance or life ambition balance, I think is the most important, right? Um, so first of all, there's some people you're stuck with, and I don't have a better word to say that. Like this could be your classmates, your teammates, the work you're doing, a project you're working on. You need to make a very conscious effort to get along with them. That can be hard, but you need to really do it because you're going to spend a lot of time with them. Um, then, in terms of your responsibilities, you've got to. I think sometimes we take on a lot of responsibilities and we don't itemize them, and then we don't give ourselves enough credit for how much energy we're putting into that. That's number one. Two, you need to be comfortable saying no. You've got to learn to say no. It's a very tough thing. Um, I don't know how to say this, but like just practice saying no, right? Sometimes when people ask me for something, I first of all say no, and I look at their facial reaction and everything, and then I'm like, "But you know what? Okay, let's think about this and all that." But it's almost like there's a point in your life where you need to switch from yes to no as your default answer, even mentally. Like whether you take a pause and say no, or you say it out and try and make it sarcastic or whatever, but you need to learn to say a little bit of a no. Um, some of these things I feel would be, and these are sort of like small personal tips. Number one, please don't compromise your sleep. Now, if you compromise your sleep, make it
Oh,
an exception, right? I know as a student, as early career professional, there's that temptation to, work overnight, and you may even come back to me and say, but you told me to do something extra or put in the extra work. But see, and this sleep one is different. Like that's recommended 6 to 8 hours of sleep. You need to get it, right? I probably need to get it in one fell swoop, not dozing in between the days and all that. But like try to discipline yourself about like just your body because ultimately your alertness, your intelligence, your health depends a lot on that. So try as much as possible to try to carve out that sort of like sleep rest time because that's when your body recovers and that's when you even do a lot of amazing things in your life like envision and have dreams and get ideas. Some of us even write code. We're debugging for like 2 hours or 3 hours and then we go to bed and when we wake up we have the answer. How that happened, we don't know. Whether we even see the code in our dreams is a different thing, but the code in our dream. Um, one of the indicators that you may be doing a little too much is literally when you can't get stuff off your mind. You're going for a weekend or party or you're traveling and you're constantly thinking of something that has not been done in the recent history you had, right? You wake up and then the first thing you're thinking of is an assignment or a project or responsibility. There are these telltale signs that show you're doing a little too much and you don't have the balance and you need to be very honest with yourself like, oh, this is a little too much. I think the last one I would say is practice being idle, right? And then when you practice, and this is what I do now. I practice being idle. I'm doing absolutely nothing, probably lying down on the bed or sitting on the couch and sort of taking notes or taking, you know, notice of those stray thoughts that are crossing my mind. And if it's all about work, responsibility, issue, problem, task, project, then I realize there's a bit of a problem. And I usually take that as an indicator that I'm probably doing a little too much or I'm stretching myself too thin. When you're idle, you should be able to be idle, or you should be able to take your mind off those things that concern you a lot and think of a few more things like, family, your friends, an experience you had, maybe your pets, if you're, I'm not into pets and all that. But like, if you find it impossible to be idle and not able to just calm down and just think of only good, positive human relationships and thoughts, and everything is all over the place, one task, one project, one responsibility, one assignment, if that's all that's running through your mind, you need to slow down. You need to slow down.
thank you very much. That was the telltale signs you mentioned was very accurate, painfully accurate.
Painfully accurate.
Yes.
All right.
My last question is you had mentioned about sharing content and putting stuff out there. Although I am more of a very introverted, reserved, even shy person, I'm very cautious of like putting stuff online. But would you say it's valuable and impactful on life, personal brand, quote unquote, and even career?
Um, so yeah, people are different. And I think there are different ways, different platforms to do some of these things. I think putting stuff out there doesn't necessarily mean you have to be loud and doesn't mean you have to be super extroverted. Like you don't have to start a podcast. And there are too many podcasts. Oh Lord, everyone
Uh,
is having.
there may be some more coming.
So you don't have to start a podcast. You don't have to put yourself out there. You don't have to go and buy equipment and get gears and get all the lighting right and then put a fake flower somewhere and all that kind of stuff. And then maybe like put a shelf and candles behind you and start a TikTok channel or YouTube. You don't have to do that. I think you need to find what works for you. Some stuff keeps you a bit anonymous. Like you could put stuff out there by just, you know, not trolling, but like being out there on one of these platforms, whether it's, so that's why there's different social media platforms. Like, Instagram is for all those your friends who behave like that they can travel around the world and go to all the fancy places and eat expensive food and they never get broke and they're just always texting you, peppering you. You don't have to do that unless you can afford to, right? You can be on somewhere like Twitter, like where you don't necessarily have to post pictures. You can just put out your thoughts and itemize things. But you see that opportunity to get inbound interactions that you do not solicit, that sort of serendipity is very helpful. So whether I mean back in the days before a lot of these platforms and how these things evolved, people just had like journals, right? We had things like diaries, just write stuff down, take notes, keep it to yourself. I think it's great, but I think at some point the world we live in sort of requires you to be out there in one way or the other. If that's just only submitting your assignments or your project, that is you're putting out something to someone that matters. So, but limiting yourself completely like that may not be the best way. You could write a book, you could write a blog post, you could even take on a pseudonym or a pseudo character. You could write with a ghost name. People did things back in the days. They wrote newspaper columns, and there are things you do that put you in the right places, especially at the time where, at the position in your career where you are. Um, right now, one of the things maybe is just like at least making sure your LinkedIn profile is up to date. You can't be telling me you're looking for a job, an opportunity, or you want to be open to work, and you wouldn't have a thorough LinkedIn profile, right? And it's fine if you're not looking for a job or you're not looking for work. Maybe you've hammered or you're made. I can get that, but it's almost paradoxical to say you're not going to put yourself out there on a platform as professional as LinkedIn and say you're looking for a job. I say I don't want to post on LinkedIn. I don't want to have a LinkedIn profile. I mean, that's just shooting yourself in the foot. So in some situations, there's sort of like the bare minimums that you really have to do. You don't have to be an influencer, I thought, either. You can be just, those guys that are always saying, I'm here in the comments. Maybe you never write articles or you never post things, but you have a way of commenting or giving takes or sharing stuff you do, or only the stuff that is most important. So to some extent, you need to put yourself out there. I think you need to find the right platform. Sometimes find a niche audience or niche audience, however you put it. A lot of people do things like the very extreme ones. People are on like Hacker News or Reddit and they have a pseudonym. And at some point, people want to know who's this exact person that goes by the name, where's 1, 2, 3, something, 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 something. And then if it's serious enough, or it's important enough, you're going to get the connection eventually. So being shy, there are ways to go around it. Like I said, select the platform that probably is both useful but still leaves sort of like a paper trail that people can connect to you with, or people that are in your community or in your industry or in your domain can sort of associate and sort of identify you or sort of verify you when necessary. You could have a blog that you're not buying ads, you're not trying to make money, but you're just writing your thoughts out there. And every now and then somebody asks you for some sort of validation or some track record, you can give them a URL or a post or something that mentions what you did. So, like I said, you don't have to start a podcast. You don't have to become a TikTok influencer. You don't need to buy the most amount of equipment. But be honest with yourself. There's some bare minimums that you can do on some selected platforms that could be very helpful for you.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Aniedi. Um, Alice, do you have a question and wrap this up?
Yeah, just one more question because I know you guys are very I'm sorry. But just I think I was just thinking about when you said put yourself out there, I was just thinking about networking. I don't know if you spoke about it or not, but I think that's something that I know I need to do a lot of, but I just can't bring myself to do a lot of it because just the whole process of networking is I won't say it scares me, but it's just I feel like it's complicated. But I know that it's needed because you need to put yourself out there so people can talk about you in places, you know, that you're not necessarily there in the room. So I just want to find out what your take was. Um yeah.
Yeah. I think baby steps. First of all, you're on the right track. You're here. You're at this event. You could have chosen not to be here, and you could have chosen not to ask a question. Here's my one hack. Let's say we meet tomorrow, or let's say you send me a cold email. You could start that email or that DM with, "I'm the person who was at the Hall Business School asking you a question about should I put myself out there or not." That is already a warm opening that makes me realize you're not a stranger, right? So when you go to the networking event or you come to a meetup like this and you build that rapport, you know, you ask a question or you do that thing that you can refer to, that's enough. So coming here and deciding not to be or logging on, I think that's already networking. You may not be the life of the party, you may not be the class clown, you may not be the speaker on stage. That's fine. You even go to the networking events with the meet and greets. Sometimes a little too much. It's a 30 people room, it's a 100 people room. You don't need to meet 100 people. Pick out 3 or 4 people, take a shot at it. If it feels like it's choking you, you'll run out of the place, right? But one of the greatest hacks you can do is ask an intelligent question because it always works. I was the one who asked you. Maybe you could also ask a silly question, and then you could tell the person I was the one to ask you that silly question. Like, oh, you, oh my God, and then you know it's a conversation starter. But nah, just ask an intelligent question. That helps you connect, especially with a speaker or a moderator or a panelist. I mean, you might get all the eyes on the room on you during that period, but it's an icebreaker, right? But I think my hack is try to go to 1 or 2 of these events, and when you get there, it's not about knowing everybody or clinking glasses or pulling up and having all the relationships with every Tom, Dick, and Harry who came for the event. It may be 1 or 2 people that you pick out, serendipitously, or it may be one person you're actually targeting. Like, okay, I want to meet this X person in my head. He or she is the organizer, or will be speaking, or is attending this, and I want to take a shot at meeting them. You may totally get there and freeze in your shoes. It's fine, and then you can come back and try again another time. But it needs a little bit of effort. Just try and get that E for effort, and then sometimes you become an A student at it.
Thank
Well,
you.
um, thank you very much, Mr. Aniedi. I believe that would be the end of our event. We really appreciate your time here. And
We sent invite to meetings.
oh, he said we are sending LinkedIn requests to you. We'll be
Sure.
putting ourselves out there as well to reach out.
Yeah, it's a pleasure connecting with you, and let's keep the conversation going. I will accept the connections, and then of course, Faisal, since we're sort of like a little bit, much closer right now. And I mean, you came out to the event. First of all, you signed up to be a GDSC lead, and then you came out to the event at DevFest in Boston, and then that's kind of like how we built this familiarity and acquaintance, and then who knows where it's going to end up. But like, yeah, you're doing the right things, and with the folks who taking time to listen to me for the past 2 hours of my boring talk, it's been a pleasure being your guest, and I hope we connect sometime in the future.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I also I also have to say thank you to Miss Jeanette. I know I saw Miss Jeanette there. Thank you for helping us organize this Black History Month GDSC Hall Talk. Many thanks to the GDSC organizing team, to Hall African Business Club, and also NABA Hall Chapter as well. Thank you and have a nice day.